Did U.S. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi show up too drunk to sign her name at 8 o'clock in the morning? No, that's not true. The story was published by a liberal satire website that tries to educate gullible Trump supporters and Republicans about the need to actually click and read links before sharing or liking them in order to avoid being embarrassed by fans of the site later. All the events described in the article are not real, however, it has been copied and published by non-satire websites as true. The story originated from an article published on March 21, 2019 titled, "Nancy Pelosi Too Drunk to Sign Her Name at 8 a.m., which opened, quote, "Nancy Pelosi showed up to the ceremonial signing of a bill this morning so drunk she couldn't even properly sign her name. Ceremonies often call for using multiple pens, which was far too confusing for the intoxicated Speaker of the House. Under her breath, those close enough could hear what she was saying. Orange shitgibbon gonna veto anyway. Motherf *CKER. Left my goddamned mimosa for this?" The Dems around her were chuckling, knowing she wouldn't be heard loud enough to make it on camera, but the Republicans in the room were appalled. "We are required to sit through these things, and when the Speaker of the House demands more mimosas, it makes it seem cheap somehow." End quote. Users on social media only saw this title, description and thumbnail. Quote, "Nancy Pelosi too drunk to sign her name at 8 a.m. she should have stayed in bed." End quote. Everything about this article is made up. First, the House Speaker does not sign bills at ceremonies. That is the President's job. Also, the purported legislation was a bipartisan effort that will approve $40 million for advanced attacks on the Mediterranean boll weevil, which has been wreaking havoc on soy and wheat crops. There is no such pest or bill. The site is part of the America's Last Line of Defense network of satire websites run by self-professed liberal troll Christopher Blair from Maine and his partner in crime John Prager, along with a loose confederation of friends and allies. Blair has been in a feud with fact-checking website Snopes for some time now and has also criticized other fact-checkers in the past who labeled his work fake news instead of satire. In reaction to this, he has recently rebranded all his active websites and Facebook pages so they carry extremely visible disclaimers everywhere. Every site in the network has an About page that reads, in part, quote, "About satire before you complain and decide satire is synonymous with comedy. Satire renounce use of humor, irony, exaggeration, or ridicule to expose and criticize people's stupidity or vices, particularly in the context of contemporary politics and other topical issues. Everything on this website is fiction. It is not a lie and it is not fake news because it is not real. If you believe that it is real, you should have your head examined. Any similarities between this site's pure fantasy and actual people, places, and events are purely coincidental and all images should be considered altered and satirical. See above if you're still having an issue with that satire thing." End quote. Articles from Blair's sites frequently get copied by real fake news sites who often omit the satire disclaimer and any other hints the stories are fake. Blair has tried to get these sites shut down in the past, but new ones keep cropping up. One such site that copied this story is supportfortrump.com, a site apparently published from Pakistan that often shares to pro-Trump pages. Blair and his operation were profiled by The Washington Post on November 17, 2018 by Eli Saslow. Quote, "Nothing on this page is real. How lies become truth in online America." November 17. The only light in the house came from the glow of 3 computer monitors, and Christopher Blair, 46, sat down at a keyboard and started to type. His wife had left for work and his children were on their way to school, but waiting online was his other community, an unreality where nothing was exactly as it seemed. End quote. If you are interested in learning more about Blair and the history of his sites, here is something to get you started. Quote, "The Ultimate Christopher Blair and America's Last Line of Defense Reading List, Lead Stories Story Updated, check for updates below." Yesterday Eli Saslow at The Washington Post wrote a fantastic article about Christopher Blair, a man from Maine who has been trolling conservatives and Trump supporters online for years and occasionally even made a living out of it. End quote. If you see one of his stories on a site that does not contain a satire disclaimer, assume it is fake news. If you do see the satire disclaimer, it is of course also fake news.